Well, first of all, I'd like to say hello to you all. And yet again, it's so very special to see you. This is a really special treat for me, not being able to travel, but at least, the opportunity to see you all and talk to you is very precious indeed. Today, we're going to talk about the heart lock theory. We're going to talk about the concept of electrical medicine and the mending of the circuitry of the human body. So we're going to look at the incredibly important heart power formulas. We have, of course, 6 formulas, 5 plus 1. As you all remember, there are the 5 formulas. The first one, of course, for the incredible spiritual energy of the heart center point, and the tricuspid formula, and of course the pulmonary on the right side of the body, the RNA formulas, and then we're going to look at the DNA heart formulas of the mitral valve and the aortic valve. So we'll bring up the PowerPoint, and particularly today, we're going to discuss the RNA tricuspid and the DNA mitral. So this incredible little map says so much. It speaks so profoundly about the human body. Today, we're going to discuss the spiritual journey and the emotional journey. And I'm going to start really going through the concept of the shower of and the effect of aspects which, well, society and emotions and spiritual issues and physical issues, which actually damage the function of the heart valves, and are never more needed in modern society, because the world is in great need for spiritual and emotional support. It's very, very interesting that the world is actually such a beautiful place, and the old values of love and family and just being with your friends is never more important than today. I'd first of all like to talk to you about constitution. Remember that all the things that I've taught you about the heart, we have this extraordinary relationship with our hearts and our own personalities. And we've always talked about constitution, and in a way we relate our 5 constitutional heart lock formulas, heart power formulas, to ourselves in our own level in life. And so constitution has become extraordinarily important to understand, more so than ever, actually. So how do you recognize a person's constitution? It is very, very interesting that we reflect our personality in practically everything that we do. So the first idea with constitution is that you look at people. You look at their appearance and how they dress and how they present themselves. You look at their body shapes, and you look at how they walk, talk, and express themselves. Furthermore, you look at the colors that they choose. Do you remember that I've explained to you that when people are in pain, they will always lean into their pain? And the fascinating relationship between the visual constitution of a person and the way they lean, the way they approach, it is really interesting that you can very quickly gather what is actually happening through physiognomy, looking at their faces, looking at the shape of the faces, looking at the teeth, and looking at the way they smile and how they lean, because people will always lean into their pain. People who lean to the right are suffering with RNA, tricuspid or pulmonary damage, and people who lean to the left are suffering with emotional, DNA, mitral, aortic, constitutional complications. Remember that constitution is not our heart lock. The fascinating aspect of constitution is that every aspect of a person's life will relate to their constitution. Their choice of clothes, their choice of colors, how they live. It's very, very interesting that somebody with a very powerful tricuspid constitution will have a sort of clear resonance around them. They call a spade a spade. They're very, very clear in their whole approach to life, whereas the pulmonary constitution is elegant and slender, usually very slim, active and sporty. Remember, the DNA mitral is literally warm and loving and a little bit plump, maybe in some ways. They present in a very warm and loving way. They always want to maybe touch or look after people. And of course, the aortic baby, you remember, is the little princess or the prince who likes everything done for them. They're the ones that sit and allow other people around them to do all the work. So it is interesting that we need, in order to be able to help people with vibrational medicine, the very, very most important thing is to understand people. And this incredible visual book, if you open the book and look at somebody, you have extraordinary, extraordinary knowledge. So remember, please, that our constitution is based on our ancestry. It goes back for hundreds and hundreds and thousands and millions of years. Our parents, our forebears, all the people who created us and brought us into the world. Our lives started the moment we were conceived. That was our personal journey. Our physical life started the moment we were born and took our first breath of life. Our constitution is not the heart lock. The constitution is how people deal with tragedies in their lives. How they deal with spiritual tragedies will have a very deep and very powerful effect on the RNA tricuspid valve. When we are hurt on the emotional journey, this will have a profound damaging effect on the DNA mitral valve of the body. So our constitution is profound. It never changes. It adapts. It moves forward as we get older, but it never changes. We can never live another person's constitution. We are who we are. And remember, the constitution guides us, protects us, and enables us to live our lives in the most extraordinary way. Our constitution is not our heart lock, but how people deal with tragedies in their lives. I have to say that to you so, so frequently, because the heart lock is where we step in to help people to deal with their lives. If you have a clear understanding about your patient and what constitution they are, then you are very much better able to handle their complicated health problems that they come to see you. Mostly people come to you when they're hurting physically, when they're expressing their tragedies in a physical level. And we're going to look seriously at this incredibly important heart power formula. We're going to look at heart power 2, spiritual calm, the tricuspid constitution. This is the constitution of nobility and power and problem solving and strategy. This is the constitution that we refer to as the father constitution. And interestingly enough, the father of the heart is this upper right atrium. This is the part of the heart that accepts all the toxic pollution from the body, from the lymph system, from the chyle, the deoxygenated blood, the blood carrying waste products from the body, which pours into the upper right atrium through the vena cava. And this is very, very, very interesting because this little valve, the tricuspid valve, is profoundly powerful. It vibrates on the colors and the energies of ultraviolet and violet and yellow. These are interesting colors because these are the colors of high sunlight. They are the most powerful spiritual energies. And these are the energies of life, survival, and the powerful concept of this particular heart valve is that it is the conductor of the orchestra of life, not the person who actually creates life, but it's the actual conductor of the music, conductor of the energy field, conductor of the orchestra. Ultraviolet light is extremely powerful. It's the energy of the central nervous system, the energy of sight, our ability to see. A very powerful word that we need to look at here is perception. Perception is how we perceive the world, how we perceive our world, how we perceive our relationships, and how we relate to what is happening around us with our families and our friends and our deep spiritual love. Remember, the word spiritual is infinite. It's a very difficult word to describe. It's the word that relates to the depth of power and faith and belief systems and the love of it's very simple, the love of our very dear loved ones, our babies, our friends that we absolutely adore, spiritual love, our parents, our future. Spiritual journey is the most profound journey of all. When we damage the spiritual journey, we do some very deep harm to the human body. The incredibly powerful energy of ultraviolet is so interesting. It's the energy from a physical point of view of the central nervous system, the pons feroli, which is the top of the spinal cord, the release of spinal fluid, the spinal fluid that controls the entire spine, right the way through from the top of the vertebra, right the way down to the base coccyx, the spinal fluid which flows through the body, holding us and enabling us to live and survive. If you damage the spinal fluid, you create paralysis. The tricuspid valve is so interesting because there are many toxins in the world, both spiritual and physical. Let's look at some of the physical toxins first. Some of them are petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are one of the most highly aggressive toxins in the environment, and that ranges right the way through from petrol fumes and all the toxins in petrol, right the way down through to plastics and plastic water bottles and plastic toys and all the petrochemical manufacturing of modern society, which is polluting our world to such a degree. Petrochemicals, which are the aeroplane chemtrails. One of the loveliest things at the moment in Jersey is that we've got no aeroplanes, and so we've got absolutely clear blue sky. I've never known it to be so beautiful. And of course, that is really lovely because the ultraviolet light is at its height. And of course, what happens with ultraviolet light, remember, is that it actually enlightens our bodies, but it also creates our food. Ultraviolet, which relates to our beautiful fruits, our sun-ripened fruits and our sun-ripened foods, incredibly important when there is damage on the RNA tricuspid valve level. We desperately need vitamin C. Vitamin C vibrates on the frequency of ultraviolet. And vitamin C, of course, is found in sun-ripened fruits. You're so fortunate if you live in the tropics, because, of course, all your wonderful fruit is sun-ripened, extraordinarily wonderful mangoes and guava and all the fruits that you have to eat and nurture and nourish yourself with. We have in Europe, we have grapes and berries and cherries, and, of course, apples and pears. So sun-ripened fruit is incredibly important because vitamin C, and I'm not talking about vitamin C in pills, because that's ascorbic acid and very toxic to the human body. But sun-ripened fruits and sun-ripened vegetables are packed with vitamin C, and we need them. We need these foods. We need these fruits to help us and support us on this incredible spiritual journey. Not those are not the only foods that we need. I'll come back to that in a minute. So some of the other toxins in our lives, of course, are all the aspartame, one of the most toxic chemicals in the world, and too much aspartame causes serious brain damage. Aspartame damages the RNA tricuspid. It's one of the most toxic substances known to man. And of course, it's fake sugar, and it's in so many foods. So we have to avoid absolutely any food that has added aspartame or sugar or toxic sweeteners or slimming foods. And these are so dangerous. All foods that have E additives in them, and particularly aspartame, because E additives are toxic as well. And then we have, unfortunately, so many of the drugs like paracetamol. That is very toxic indeed. And there are many other. Interestingly enough, some of the metals in the world are very toxic and damage on this level as well. We have to look at gold, which is extremely interesting. It has a high vibration of 88 microamps and vibrates on a frequency extremely high, ultraviolet. It damages the brain, which everybody thinks gold is inert. It's not. Titanium is another metal that is extremely dangerous to damage the tricuspid valve. There are many others, of course. And okay, there are many, many chemicals in the environment. So these are the chemicals that irritate and excite. These are the chemicals that inflame the RNA tricuspid valve. When the tricuspid valve is damaged, it becomes inflamed. The response is inflammation, massive inflammation. And the illnesses which occur as a result of this inflammation are basically brain damage, Alzheimer's, serious loss of mental capability, anxiety, panic attacks, incredible distress and disturbances linked with heightened activity in the central nervous system, the brain, the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex. These are the organs of the brain that actually get damaged. These are, intriguingly enough, the same organs of the body that get terribly damaged by trauma, the very same organs that get damaged by spiritual issues of attack and the tragedies which occur in our lives when we suffer with complications with our fathers and our male relationships. So, remember always with vibrational medicine, we're always creating a bridge between the spiritual and the physical. So we've been just talking about spiritual toxins, but now let's look at spiritual emotions that damage this incredibly powerful little valve. And these are, we've just mentioned fatherhood, we've just mentioned the relationship of father, but let's look at the concept of fatherhood again. The father is the man or the power, the energy that is actually protective and powerful, and the leaders. And of course, fatherhood doesn't just relate to our family, it relates to the governments, it relates to the people in charge of the world. It relates to people, the teachers, the people who are looking after the world in such, and have a responsibility. So the energy of the tricuspid valve is power, nobility, judgment, extraordinary wisdom, incredible perception, and the ability to actually see the world in the most remarkable way. So we're looking at something very, very special here. So not just fatherhood, but male relationships. This extraordinary energy, the spiritual journey, the tricuspid constitution, the male, strong, structural, noble leadership. And again, here we come to this extraordinary concept of nobility and charismatic personality. When people are healthy, and healthy tricuspid people are extraordinarily wonderful. They have this amazing energy when they walk into a room. They knock everybody for six. They look at you, they smile at you, they protect you. Here we have these incredible colors. We've talked about violet, and we've talked about the incredible ultraviolet. But when you look at this map, you realize that every single color in the map of color has a correlative energy. Sunlight reflects sunshine, beautiful sunshine, and the highest vibration of the midday sun reflects yellow as sunshine. The beautiful yellow is very, very powerful, because when we look at the tricuspid valve, you've got to remember that it is just the center of the energetic field force. So the entire energy spreads out into the upper right atrium, the upper right shoulder, the upper right jaw, and then of course we switch across into the left brain. But as we move down, we're looking at the upper right correlative quadrant, which is the liver, the stomach, the pyloric sphincter, the gallbladder, the cystic duct, and of course the very, very powerful correlative sphincter relating to the tricuspid, the RNA tricuspid valve, linked with the sphincter of the Oddi, the sphincter ovodi. And this sphincter ovodi is just so important, because the sphincter ovodi is the meeting point of the digestive tract, the pancreas and all the pancreatic enzymes, the pancreatic hormones of insulin, secretin, glucagon, and the entire mechanism of the waste products coming down from the gallbladder. Isn't it interesting that the tricuspid valve controls the deoxygenated blood carrying all the waste products, and the sphincter ovodi controls the bile ducts leading away from the liver, carrying all the waste products from the liver in the bile? And so it is absolutely, utterly fascinating that we also have a deeper correlation when you damage the tricuspid valve. The RNA tricuspid valve is damaged. Unfortunately, there is going to be a cascade of damage right the way through the body and right the way down into the lymph glands. So here we have the upper right quadrant of the abdomen. And here we've got these massively powerful and huge lymph ducts in the upper right quadrant. These are the most important lymph ducts for releasing the lymph from the body that carries the de novo toxins of the upper right quadrant of the body. And of course, these are also the lymph glands that get paralyzed by emotions. The paralyzed emotions of the opposite of the tricuspid nobility, which is anger and aggression and cruelty and destruction and control and fury and cruelty and abuse. And these are very, very powerful and very aggressive. And these will block the lymph. And why does the lymph block? Why does the lymph block? What is going on here? And when the lymph blocks, we get the most appalling problems: liver, stomach, cancer of the right kidney, cancer of the liver cancer. We get pancreatic cancer. We get all the horrible illnesses of celiacs and pancreatic diabetes, and so many of these tremendously dangerous, desperate autoimmune deficiency illnesses. So why on earth are we talking about these lymph ducts when we've just been talking about the RNA tricuspid valve? Remember that whatever happens to the tricuspid valve will immediately correlate with the sphincter ovodi. Whatever happens in the tricuspid valve will starburst into the upper right quadrant of the human body, in every single organ of the human body. The left quadrant of the brain relating to the upper right quadrant of the human body. And why do we find that these lymph glands block up when the tricuspid valve is damaged? Because those lymph glands flush into the cisterna chyli. The cisterna chyli pumps directly up into the vena cavae, and the chyle, which is the waste products of the human body, then get pumped directly into the upper right atrium of the heart. If the tricuspid valve is damaged for whatever reason, on whatever level, whether that be spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical, it doesn't matter. If that valve is congested, the sphincter ovodi will also become congested, and the lymph glands will not open. They will not flush into the cisterna chyli and poison a heart that is already under duress. And this is one of the most profound understandings that we have linked with the heart lock theory and the spiritual issues in life and the heartbreaking experiences that we suffer with, that actually lead into serious physical illness. And the physical illness of the RNA tricuspid is not just spiritual breakdown, not just the incredible mental destruction of the human body on the chronic level, the degenerative level of the spiritual journey, the incredible agonizing emotional level when we suffer with emotional functional imbalances, functional digestive imbalances, stomach disorders, ulcers, ulceration, duodenal ulcers. We've already mentioned diabetes and celiacs and all these horrendous autoimmune conditions, which we'll come back to in a second. But then we have this concept that the body becomes intoxicated, incredibly intoxicated, because always so above, so below, always so above, so below, the reflection. And remember that we regard the reflection as the physical symptoms of what happens in the world and what happens to our lives is actually physical. So the upper right quadrant, of course, is your hypergastric plexus. So that entire upper quadrant of the ascending colon, the hypergastric plexus, and the transverse colon to the center is completely paralyzed. So if there's a spiritual issue, you often suffer with very serious deep colonic complications. The upper right quadrant of the inguinals, incredible deep inguinals, which causes thrombosis and venal complications and paralysis of the right leg, conditions such as multiple sclerosis, which occur as a result, cramp, incredible complications down through the sciatic nerve into the ankles, into the feet, chilblains and loss of function and horrible red legs and swollen ankles. Very, very, very complicated. The upper quadrant of particularly the right, of course, sometimes reflecting into the upper right quadrant of the left. Of course, we're seeing tragic consequences with breast cancer on the increase, horrendous problems in the axillary nodes. And so here we have a concept that one little bit of damage will reflect right the way through the human body, manifesting as physical, destructive, degenerative issues right the way through. And it's incredibly fascinating that we have the wherewithal. We have this extraordinary knowledge, this incredible wisdom. So if you just like to go back down again into the formulas, let's look at the formulas that relate. First of all, we are going to look at the tree formulas. Superfit 2 Calm is our extraordinarily high vibration eucalyptus formula. This is the formula for the brain, the pituitary, and the spinal cord. It supports the central nervous system, the pericardium meridian, which of course is, in Chinese terms, it's the circulatory system, it's the blood, it's the incredible protector of the heart in acupuncture. Peace, this extraordinary sense of joy and peace in our lives, relaxation, tranquility, stillness, untroubled thoughts. We use this formula extremely powerfully for children with hyperactivity and children with brain damage and autistic children. Funnily enough, I've been working incredibly hard with I'm very, very busy at the moment because the majority of my work is working with little children who are autistic. All the families that I've been caring for have had troubled times recently, and I'm looking after all these little ones, and this is an absolute mainstay. It's one of the most important formulas to negate the side effects of toxins. All the toxins which affect the RNA tricuspid valve, all the toxins that damage. Remember that the intriguing function of the thymus gland is the production of thymopoietin, which is the T8 suppressor cells, and thymopoietin is responsible for the autoimmune system. So again, emotions that affect the tricuspid valve, the RNA tricuspid valve, toxins that affect the RNA tricuspid valve will also have a devastating effect on the autonomic immune system, our ability to protect ourselves against toxins in the environment. If we now move to the next formula, the Superfit 3 Relax, Our beautiful magnolia. Well, my garden at the moment is just beautiful because all my magnolia trees are out. Magnolia formula, Superfit 4, sorry, is actually, there's a little mistake. Oh no, I'm so sorry, there isn't. There's not a mistake there. Flower formula 4 is right. So brain, central nervous system, thought, peaceful dreams, circadian rhythm, serotonin, thrombocytes, contemplation, dreams, equilibrium. A lot of damage being done in the world to the RNA tricuspid valve will create sleeplessness. People can't sleep. They can't cope. Financial worries. Remember, this is an extraordinary formula for the circadian rhythm. It's very, very powerful to help people to deal with anxiety, financial concerns, all the things that are linked with everyday life, solving problems, sorting things out in world. Digest. This extremely important and powerful U formula. This formula relates also to the 4 yellow flower formulas, HF, home formulas, HF12, dandelion, for the liver, the gallbladder, and the stomach meridian, HF13 for the kidney meridian, HF14 for the small intestine meridian, and HF15 for the pancreas meridian. The U formula is for the liver meridian, the sphincter ovodi, the gallbladder meridian, the sphincter ovodi, the stomach meridian, the sphincter ovodi, the pancreas meridian, and of course the entire digestive system. We're seeing incredible problems with the digestive system. And a lot of people are suffering very badly with terribly swollen tummy. Go back to your observation, looking at people, seeing where their trauma is. Remember that the physical body reflects like a mirror everything that's going on in people's lives and souls. So if somebody walks in and with their hands on their stomach and they tell you that they've got terrible digestive problems, then track back into where is this all centered from, the tricuspid valve. Here we have our 5 tricuspid flower formulas. Extremely powerful, our most important HF1. HF1, our lotus formula. This was our most powerful formula until we started to create more research. HF1 for shock, for tragedy, for trauma, for loss of beloved loved ones, for shocking news, for the tragedy of loss, for the tragedy of shock. This incredibly spiritual formula is extremely important in modern society. Then we go to our beautiful magnolia, camellia formula. Again, my garden is just literally covered in camellias and beautiful. They're all in full flower at the moment. They seem to come when they're needed. Our flower formula for thistle, the crown formula. This formula, again, for solving anxiety, it's called tranquility, and it's an extremely important formula for the eye, the right eye. It's very worrying that the world is going into a lot of illness at the moment, and one of the illnesses that we are seeing reported constantly at the moment is eyesight. The tricuspid valve, the sensory organ of the tricuspid is eyesight. And then we have these 2 beautiful correlative formulas, the yellow formulas of dandelion, to solve and support wrath and anger. And again, beautiful yellow foxglove for the pancreas, for the support of the umbilical cord and the control of that point. And remember that this is the most incredible, powerful formula for sugar balance, but it's also linked very, very closely with loss and death of a baby, maybe. So here we have our beautiful formulas. And of course, we have new formulas which are not on this PowerPoint. And again, I want to talk to you very briefly about our special care. We have 2 special care formulas that relate to the RNA tricuspid valve. One is Cedar Hope, which is our beautiful, beautiful formula for our special needs children, for the brain, the central nervous system. Hope, this extraordinary word, hope, to pull through from tragedies and spiritual complications, for concussion, brain damage, spinal cord imbalances, damage of epidural. That was another chemical that damages the tricuspid valve. Remember, it's all about vibration. It's all about vibration. So those are the tricuspid formulas. Sometimes we do also need to use apple calm with RNA tricuspid damage. Apple calm is the formula to support the incredible damage of chemicals. We use this for our special care children, epilepsy, fitting, terrible hyperactivity, damage to the central nervous system, damage to the cervical vertebra 1 that correlates right the way through the body into the vertebra, the thoracic vertebra 12, sorry, 9, 8, 9, 8 stomach, 9 liver meridian and chakra, 10 gallbladder, and 11, yes, 11 is stomach actually, isn't it? So those are the vertebrae that are also linked. So a lot of people are suffering with paralysis in their backs whenever they have a tricuspid valve, RNA tricuspid, eyesight, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, very serious diabetes, paralysis, all down the right side of the body, multiple sclerosis. There are many, many other illnesses as well. And they're all highly aggressive, but also very exciting. My new research has arrived in Malaysia, thank goodness. And all that wonderful work that we did in Gunung Mulu, where we were busy researching, looking for support for one of the most important aspects of the tricuspid valve, which I haven't yet mentioned. And of course, it is the stem cells called megakaryocytes. And these extraordinary stem cells are responsible for the protection of our human body from the outside world, right the way through, reflecting into the bone marrow and the production of stem cells that control the circulatory blood, all the blood cells. So particularly, predominantly, the first activity of the megakaryocytes is to release blood platelets when the body is under threat. So these reflect as bruising, high color. When you first see that there's a megakaryocyte problem, you see it in the eyes. They go yellow and red, and they don't look clear. The sclera doesn't look clear, remember, from a neuroptics point of view. The first sign is people look florid and they look bruised in their faces. The second sign is that they may present with bruises and poor healing, or they may bleed. Women have heavy loss of blood, heavy menstrual flow, nosebleeds, or bleeding from the orifices of the human body. So that's particularly predominant. And whenever the RNA tricuspid valve is damaged, there will be a problem with megakaryocytes, bruising, and thrombosis and aneurysm and some complicated problems. But remember that every cell in the human body has a skin, and there is another problem occurring here. Whenever there is RNA tricuspid valve damage, we are seeing a very complicated paraventricular complication. The paraventricular is the master controller through the hypothalamus, through the thalamus, through the extraordinary, we haven't even mentioned the pineal, but it's actually one of the most important hormones that controls the water balance through vasopressin, which is tricuspid, vitally important, the potassium levels of the human body, and the osmosis. So what we're actually seeing as well here with RNA tricuspid damage is this incredible fluid imbalances. massive fluid complications of osmosis. So people look as if they're putting on weight, but in actual fact, they're carrying very high levels of fluid. So you can see massive complications here, and our new formula, our most valuable, wonderful new formula called EDS2 Storksbill. So EDS2 Storksbill is now in Malaysia. Thank goodness you have it. We have it here. It's one of the most important formulas. And it's been brought out and as a result of all my latest research. So wonderful protection with our formulas, are extraordinarily powerful vibrational formulas. First, do no harm, mend the damage, mend the electrical circuitry that's being broken down in modern society, and then the body can function at optimum function and live and survive. So there you are. That is the RNA tricuspid that I wanted to talk to you about today.